Welcome to the Patricia Jo Grover Show, where we make believers into achievers. Today, my guest is Phyllis Ayman, and let me tell you, she is the voice for elder care. She is an elder care advisor, advocate, speech and language pathologist, speaker, and trainer for public and private sector certifications in dementia training. She worked with thousands of residents, families, and healthcare workers in almost 50 nursing homes during a career that spans approximately. Phyllis has been the advocate and outspoken proponent for improved dignity, respect, quality of life, and quality of care for our elder citizens, who she says are essentially our future selves, which is so true. Phyllis conceptualized and hosts the podcast Seniors Straight Talk on the podcast platforms. She published 2 books. Her third, Dignity and Respect, are our elder citizens getting what they deserve, is due out in just a few weeks, and she recently published her first course, Resilience Toolbox Secrets: How to Overcome Stress and Burnout. The show, Phyllis, because again, they are our future selves, and it's not that far ahead of us. So I want to hear more about this. I have so much respect for our elders and what they have brought to the table to us, and brought and so much wisdom. So welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Patricia. You know, I'm thinking as I'm listening to you that we actually have more in common than the fact that it's our future selves, because I was told that when I was younger that my parents originally were going to name me Patricia. So
oh my goodness, isn't that something?
Isn't that funny? So there you go.
Fantastic. So yeah, you shed the light, and you shed the light on things that we need to be focusing on as American citizens right now, because just it comes to mind with everything going on with COVID at this point in time, and these people being stabilities, and many not getting the visitation and all of that stuff, and that stimulation that they need too, because I can't imagine. I would dread being in that situation, just thinking myself, what
Right.
the reactions to that. So your new book coming out, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, actually, I changed the title slightly. It sounds like a funny thing to do, but it's Dignity and Respect Are Our Aging Parents Getting What They Deserve? Because, it really is, from my point of view, the fact that these are not only our individual aging parents, but collectively our aging parents. And if we can embrace that way and think about them that way, then maybe we would do better in care that we think that they should receive.
Right. Exactly.
So, as you said, I have 2 other books. The first one was From Nursing Homes to Rehabilitation Centers, Everything You Need to Know, which I have to admit got a little technical and in the weeds and academic. Even for me, when I go back, I'm like, gee. And then the second book, however, was Overdue: Quality Care for Our Elder Citizens. And this one, I wasn't really expecting to write a book at this time. I was actually, I'd say, inspired by a web class that I watched by a publisher, actually. And I had been working in nursing homes during COVID. It helped, so I was covering as a speech pathologist. And, at this point, that's this time that I saw this webinar, I was kind of coming to the tail end of that. And I was also doing some assessments in facilities, like overseeing clinical programs, and those were more further away from where I live. And it was more, not that I thought it would necessarily be any different, but what really got me about that was that those many years, and I just thought somehow that their living environments for our elder citizens or aging parents would be somewhat different. And it just really, I felt very demoralized.
Wow.
And so I was inspired, actually, to write this book. And it starts at the point of the pandemic, actually, because it was just so dreadful not only for, I mean, it's dreadful for residents, but healthcare workers. People don't really talk about the healthcare workers' homes. We think about more the nurses, the doctors, respiratory therapists. Now I'm hearing them start to add physical and occupational therapists to the mix of the conversation. And for some journalists, although speech pathologists are also who are on ventilators or who come off
Oh,
ventilators,
okay.
that was actually one of my area was an area of specialty of mine for many years. So I thought, gee, this is so important. We all see on the news. I'm sure many of your viewers and listeners have seen on the news healthcare workers around the country. We're seeing and hearing it again now that the virus is spiking again about how it is to be in those environments, how it is to wear all that PPE. It's debilitating. It really is. And so that's where the book starts, to kind of try and describe it a little bit, what the residents are going through, what the healthcare workers are going through, and then obviously to take that story forward. And it ends with, excuse me, I'm sorry, it ends with how we're caring for or treating or thinking about older people. What are our attitudes about them? And why is it that we don't think about them differently?
Right, right. And very valid points and things that need to be discussed. And that's the thing. It needs to be brought front and center and attention. And why not right now? Why not right now when some people are still, at home, have more time on their hands to be thinking about. And I think people are starting to think about, again, their futures. Because so
Right.
much has changed control. Now put themselves in the feeling, in the position of these people in elder care. Think about how much less that they have any control over anything, and being in those positions. So when we take ourselves from our position that we're in and temporarily just think about it and put ourselves in that spot, then you can see that we could have some changes being made. So I kudos for shedding a light on that subject.
Oh, thanks so much. It's you know, there are people probably who have had family members um, who had COVID, and while some people can recover and go home, which is a phenomenal thing, I have been in nursing homes where people recovered and had to go into a nursing home, not just nurse residents who became ill, but people who needed rehabilitation after the hospital and had to go to a nursing home, which often happens as a short-term rehabilitation kind of stay if a person maybe has a knee replacement or a broken hip or
Right, right.
has something that happens and they need some short-term rehabilitation. But now there are COVID patients recovering who are very debilitated because it does debilitate you, and who need that kind of rehabilitation and are finding themselves in nursing homes. And so it's, I think, becoming, for those people in that situation, maybe they're more aware. They never thought they'd be in that situation at this point in time. Actually, nobody ever does, even older people.
Exactly.
So it's becoming more so. Something that I was actually talking with someone. I had him on my show, my podcast, Seniors Straight Talk. It's still up. Well, it's always remains up, but it went up on Thursday, so it will be up at least until Wednesday. And his name is Dr. Mike Wasserman, and he's been an outspoken advocate about the whole situation in nursing homes since it all started in March, before anybody was talking about it. And I actually met him on Twitter. So talk about the connections people make on social media.
Exactly.
It's really
Exactly.
fantastic. It's about connection. So even though we're very much separated, if people, not only through Zoom calls, reach out to other people, reach out to things they see or hear, the connections that are being made are really fantastic. I made some terrific ones. But we pointed out in our discussion that this task force that's being created, that the Biden Harris administration is creating, that they're not that elder citizens aren't really kind of part of that conversation. So older people, they've talked about many different sectors, but not specifically that. And He is a geriatrician and was hoping that there will be somebody who's representing geriatric medicine, because the needs of older people from a medical point of view are very different than when you're younger. I mean, that only makes sense. It's like you have a car that's 80,000 miles. Doesn't it need a different kind of care than a car that has 20,000 miles?
Oh yes, no doubt about it. No doubt about
I
it.
have 67,000 miles, so I
So yeah, but since your book starts at the point of the pandemic, did you have any specific insights about your experiences um in nursing homes? I know we were just talking about that, but um I need to ask, and I'm curious as far as uh, are and I'm not familiar myself. What is the blend of nursing homes and those facilities with people that have been in the military? So we're talking and
Mm.
veterans and as opposed to not. So that's what I wanted to bring
Oh,
up.
oh, that's a great question. Um,
So what's the blend? What percentage would you say that?
I don't know. I couldn't say what the percentage is, but there certainly is a large percentage of people who are in the military. And by the way, spouses and family members of people who served in the military. And it's funny, not funny, interesting that you're bringing that up, because there are many people, veterans or their spouses, that are in nursing homes that really don't need to be there. And there is an aid in attendance benefit that many people aren't aware of. They could be in their homes and receiving um, support, financial support, so they wouldn't have to be in a nursing home. I'm
Oh,
not saying all, but there
right.
are many. And there are people who are advocates for this aid and attendance benefit. And it's not widely known because there is a lot of money that would, it's a different financial outlay that the Veterans Administration would have to be paying if those people were in their homes. But it's interesting you bring it up, because many years ago, I was working in a building, and there was a woman in the Vietnam War, and I had seen her on the way out of the building, and she told me that she was furious because they didn't do enough for Veterans Day, she thought was number one. But the other thing was, and I didn't remember this really until she said it. Uh, at this building, there was a flagpole outside with an American flag that was flying. And she pointed out to me that the flag is not supposed to be flying in the evening unless there's a light on it. And
Right. Okay.
and when she said it, I said, gee, I think I remember that, although
Hmm.
it wouldn't have struck me because
Right.
that's right. It's not, it's whatever's in your focus or your consciousness, or that's of importance to you. Not that it's not important, but I wouldn't have noticed it. And she was
Exactly.
very, very, very upset because she thought that it didn't pay the kind of respect to veterans that it should have. And I thought how interesting that she brought that up, because I'm not saying that veterans aren't appreciated or respected, but I don't think that Veterans Day, the buildings that I've been in, have been given enough import on that day. And we just passed it last week, and I actually tweeted something about it in response to something that somebody else tweeted. Was Veterans Day. Are we talking about our older veterans that are in nursing homes, that are in their own homes, that are isolated, that are um, lonely, that need interaction, that need community involvement? Or there are people reaching out to those much for our country, um,
Exactly.
that we should be giving something back to them.
Yes, exactly, Phyllis. And I totally agree wholeheartedly. And I don't know if there are separate elder care facilities for veterans, like
There are,
through that, or if they are integrated with. And I'm sure
but
they're depending
there
on where
are
they are.
there are veterans. There are facilities that are specifically geared to people that are veterans. There are. I can't tell you that I know how many there are,
Right.
but there are. Um, but there are a number of veterans and their spouses and families that are in nursing homes.
Right.
I can,
Right.
I can tell you that.
Yeah. So, and again, the importance of shedding the light on this, getting information out there. And if they're in elder care, some, I know there's like assisted living type things, and then there's places where people actually are in need of that like either one-on-one care, or definitely having somebody check in on them on more of a regular basis and everything, because the needs are so different. Not, you can't put everybody inside one box that they're, and I know I wouldn't want to be if I was a patient in one of those facilities. I, I know I'm going to be different than a lot of the other people, you know what I mean? That
Well, yeah, absolutely. Well, you can't paint any culture um, or anybody from any country or background with a broad brush. We're all individuals. Now that, yeah, because I'm hearing you say it, and is is using the word facilities in terms that apply to these kind of environments, because facilities is what they are.
right.
They're more hospital-like, they're more institutional, and unfortunately, with that goes a certain mentality and a certain way of caring for people that isn't really doesn't really provide a home-like environment. Actually, the term nursing home is actually more appropriate. So I'm always trying to reinforce, like, let's call them nursing homes or living long-term care homes. I mean, that takes a long time to make that switch because we're so used to saying facilities.
Right, right, too. And again, too, if we could get them to be more like that environment for
Right.
that overall experience, I would like to see that more than having it be so institutionalized, or
Right. Right.
everything.
And I
Right.
think that happens because of the reimbursement. It comes through Medicare and Medicaid, and those are medically oriented kinds of reimbursement, with testing and with these antibodies, but that a lot of the places where these things are going to be disseminated, and a lot of them will be disseminated through CVS and Walgreens and chains of that sort. Some of those places aren't really in remote areas. So this is going to
Right.
be a tremendous challenge. And also the money that has been, I'll say, allocated by the government is far less than what's required for these vaccines.
Right.
In order to do it across the country, I mean, it's to the tune of billions of dollars, but the government is looking to, people think about their attitudes towards older people. I mean, healthcare workers are going home to their families. They're in the community. Some of them work in multiple of these buildings,
Right.
and it's a very precarious situation.
Right, right. But definitely, again, a light needs to be shed on this, and so that understanding can be, encompass what needs to be done, and so changes can be made.
The other tell people to really ask is, how are they engaging people who are in their buildings? People are lonely, they're isolated under normal circumstances.
Right,
If
right.
they're isolated, we all know, and there's research that says if you're not moving around, you lose your physical ability, and it also adds to cognitive decline and depression. So if people are confined to a small room, what are they doing to help keep them mobile, to help keep them active? In the very beginning of this thing, I have a friend who's actually very well known in this space, and his mother was in an assisted living facility, and he was telling me that, or I should say, a assisted living home, and he was telling me that she was really deteriorating. She was in her little apartment or room for 6 weeks, hadn't moved around, and this was a terrible. So you're not getting out and seeing the people that you normally see at meals or socializing, because all of those activities were suspended. So I would definitely tell families to ask, what are you doing to engage people, to keep them mobile, to keep them moving, to keep them so they're not experiencing that kind of loneliness, which would only exacerbate whatever condition they have.
Right. And Phyllis, I have to be honest with you. My husband and I just had this conversation last night. And this was before seeing your bio, and from having the conversation about in nursing homes and facilities having PPP, and having that, but dealing with patients with dementia.
Right.
as far as for keeping it on. They're not going to know why it's on there. It's going to
Right.
be um, so invasive to them, and scary. And to see people running around in masks, imagine with you not, you coming
Ah,
in and out of knowing where you are and who you are and what's going on, let alone seeing that. I mean, that is just so scary. And we were
I
having
agree.
that conversation. Like,
I
I
agree.
can't even imagine.
Right. Several months ago, when I was in this particular nursing home, there was a gentleman who moved into the home who did have a rather advanced case of dementia. And I said that very thing. At that time, we were wearing shields. It was really a hot spot. And I said, what is this man thinking about? We look like space
Right,
cadets.
right,
We could look like Martians coming at somebody, because that's what it is. And then the person responds in a way, and then you say, oh my goodness, they're have this kind of behavior, or they're whatever words, right? I want to say them. um, this is a person. They don't know who this person is. Some people have started to put smiles on their mask, but it's not the same as seeing a
right,
person. We
right.
learn so much from looking at people, facial expressions,
Yes.
even looking at people's eyes when they smile. And when you're wearing that PPE, it's very hard to smile, trust
Right,
me. So, and if somebody has a shield over the mask, you can't really see their eyes either.
right.
And not smiling at that time. And that's such an important part of that interaction.
Yes.
Seeing somebody smile and say hello and hearing the warmth of their voice, you can't even hear through it. So it really is a problem. I'm glad to hear that you were discussing it in
Yeah,
your
we
home.
we we were we were saying, because we have grandchildren that are in elementary school, and what it is for them to have to keep things on and everything. So I can't even imagine, again, these elder care places for them, and then if you add the dementia on top of it, I can't even imagine.
Right, right.
So,
It's either. It has to be a scary experience.
right.
Talking about space cadets, right? So I was watching the launch yesterday, and as I'm talking to you and saying it, I'm looking at them saying, "Wow, that's kind of like how people look walking into people's home rooms in nursing homes." It
Ex-
actually dawned on me. So it's funny that you were saying you were discussing it with your husband.
yeah,
This is a real serious concern, because, as we all know, well, people certainly in the nursing home space, but people talk in terms of that this is a response to a situation. It's not
exactly.
a dementia behavior. It's a response, just like a child. I'm not saying these are children, but just like a child responds if they're tired or hungry or uncomfortable and they can't communicate, they respond with other kinds of behavior.
Exactly.
Well, a
Exactly.
person with dementia is the same. But what happens in a nursing home, or in maybe even in an assisted living community, well, not an assisted living community because it's not so medically oriented, but uh, they start to give out all kinds of drugs to sedate the person, to make their behaviors less prominent. So it's not a problem in the environment. Instead of looking at the person and saying, gee, why is this person reacting that way? What can we do? Is there something we can
Right.
do? Is it something that's associated with the condition itself? Or is there something we could do? Is there something we could find out? Are there questions we can ask this person? How can we communicate with them and let them know that we're here to help them? Maybe we can find out something so that we can help address the feelings they're having, which is the reason that they're responding the way they are.
Up on some of these things, and it's planting seeds for them, for looking for if they have anybody or themselves,
Right.
what may be coming up that they need to start thinking about. So, are there any other initiatives that you're currently involved in that would help families and healthcare workers?
Well, I have this, as you mentioned, this course, Resilience Toolbox Secrets, what to do when you're feeling overwhelmed, stressed, burned out, which people can find at my website, phyllisayman.associates.com. And it runs on, it has 7 modules, but it goes through different kinds of techniques that people could use, all different kinds of techniques. So there's a lot of information in the course, and there are techniques that people can choose from. They can find something that works for them, that's right for them, that it's like trying on a pair of shoes. Does it feel right for you? And in doing so, they can hopefully become more resilient as they face not only this challenge, but other challenge in their lives. I actually wrote the course originally for healthcare workers and caregivers. There are so many of us who need these techniques now that it could be helpful for certainly many of us. So that's one thing. I started this. This is kind of a different, in a different vein. I started a YouTube channel. It's called Senior News Today, where I have these little tidbits, news items that major media, but that people could benefit them or their families or the community at large. They're just small tidbits, one or two minutes. It's on my YouTube channel, Phyllis Ayman Associates. So that's another one of my initiatives. And I'm in the planning stages of a promo for a television show. So we'll see.
Fantastic. Hey, congratulations.
Pike, it's only a promo, but I'm in the planning stages of filming it, and we'll see what happens with that. The idea of the show is to have these kinds of discussions and bring it more to the community at large, because it's not something that's really talked about. And there's so many topics to cover relating to older people, aging parents, people who have aging parents or older people that they're caring for in their lives. Not that it should be morbid. It doesn't have to be morbid, but they're important issues that need attention.
Right. And it's real life. It is real life, and life happens to every single one of us. And I say it does, whether you're ready for it or not. And that's the thing. Every single one of us are getting older and are getting more. We'll use those words, but to really think about it.
Right. I was going to say the reality is by the time we finish, we'll be an hour older than when we started. It's not something you can stop or change. It is the way it is.
You're right.
So I used to say to people, well, what goes up and doesn't come down? What goes up and never comes down, ever? Your age.
Right.
That's just a reality. And I say I'm nearer than further, but something that I always say I learned from people in nursing homes, because of course now I'm older, I'm 67, but even when I was 50 and let's say 55 and 60, and I thought I was getting up there, it just goes to show what our attitudes are. And we have them about ourselves, not just about other people.
That's
we tend to have this about ourselves. So we take this on. People don't realize that. I talk about that in the book as well. And I would say to someone, whether 80, whatever, and I'd say I'm nearer than further. And when I'm closer to their age, and when they would ask me how old I am, what age I am, they would say to me, you're just a kid. And it made me put this whole thing in perspective, because if I'm 67 and I'm talking to somebody who's 80, so that means when I was born, they were 13. I'm a kid.
Right.
I mean, that is reality.
Right.
We tend not to think about it that way.
Exactly. So true.
Yeah, so it changed my perspective in a lot of ways and gave me a different lens to look through in approaching any older person.
Very, very, that's fantastic. Yourselves in their shoes, because at one point we'll very much so probably be there,
So here's another thing, hopefully, because I write the COVID about what to look for when you're seeking care in a nursing home, but listen, if people email me and have any questions about that, I would be happy to share that with them.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you, Phyllis. And as the Patricia Jo Grover Show, again, we turn believers into achievers, but it's all about what you want in your life, and live your life to the fullest, and understand that everyone else, all these folks that Phyllis is talking about, they deserve to be able to live their lives to the fullest too. So let's put that spin on this today. This has been the Patricia Jo Grover Show. You can find out more about me at patriciajogrover.com. And I have a little short video after coming through. But if you text the word goal, GOAL, to 866-926-4020, I have the 7 steps for goal achievement there for you. So I'll look forward to having you with me next time. And thanks again, Phyllis, for being with us.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been terrific. I really enjoyed it.
Wonderful. All right, bye.
Bye.